As the coffee machine brewed David's morning coffee, David was preparing to go to work. It was a dark and cloudy Monday morning. David worked in an office, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. It was not a very exciting job, but then again, David was not a very exciting person. He was an introvert who preferred being on his own. He lived in a studio apartment alone and spent his weekends watching movies and playing video games. He did not go out, would rarely leave the house, with the exception of work, of course. He packed his laptop, grabbed his coffee, and got in his car. In the car, he put on a podcast. David felt relaxed as the wipers squeaked and the blower warmed up the cold car. He reached the car park, where he noticed that there were more spaces than usual. He would circle around until he found a space, but today he got one almost right away. How bizarre, he thought. He parked his car, got his bag, and proceeded to go inside. He arrived at the office, and it did seem like there were less people there than usual. Maybe there's a flu going around, he thought, as he proceeded to sit down at his cubicle. He worked away on Excel until 1:30, which was his 30-minute break. He took out his pasta lunchbox and ate. He stayed at his cubicle all day, with the exception of a toilet break, as he did not care much for the social interaction that would be required if he were to eat at the cafeteria. At 5:01, he got up and packed his bag and proceeded to leave. He ran into some people, politely said goodbye, and got in his car, where he continued to listen to the podcast, which he could hear a bit better as the rain had stopped a few hours prior. His night was pretty uneventful, and he got into bed earlier than usual. Once again, like every other day, the coffee machine brewed David's morning coffee. He packed his lunch and got ready to leave. Once again, it was raining. He put on the heater, the wipers, and another podcast. When he reached work, the car park was even emptier than yesterday. Where are all these people going? He thought to himself. He once again proceeded into the office, only to find it almost completely empty. He now knew that he had to find out what was going on. He went over to a girl called Linda. "Hey Linda, what's going on? Where is everyone?" But Linda did not respond. In fact, she did not even acknowledge David's existence. She just sat there, emotionless, typing away on the computer. David decided to see what she was typing. It was absolute nonsense. It made no sense. A bit freaked out, he decided to head out to the main office where his boss worked. It was a rule that you can't disturb the boss unless it's very, very important. David felt that this was urgent enough that he deserved an explanation. He stood outside the substantial mahogany door and knocked once, twice, 3 times, but there was no response. He slowly grabbed the door and proceeded inward. It was empty. He looked around, now freaked out. On the desk was a file. David Hayes. David felt his heart skip a beat. Slowly, he walked over towards it and opened it. Inside were pictures of David sitting in his chair in his cubicle. Close-up shots, wide shots, even bird's eye view. David had never felt this disturbed and violated in all the years he was alive. He grabbed the file and stormed out, wanting to confront his colleagues about what he just found. But he now realized the office was completely empty. Frozen in time. Computers still on, lunches half eaten, belongings on the table. David glanced out to the car park and it too was empty. In fact, the road that leads to the car park was also empty. No cars, no pedestrians, nothing. "Alright, I've had enough of this. I'm going home." David rushed out the door and proceeded to exit. However, he found himself back in the office. What? He tried again, and again, and again, but he could not leave. It's almost like the real world was locked away and there was nobody and nothing except for this office. David sat at his cubicle and started crying. He was so confused. He He went around the office, frankly trying to find answers, but found none. After a few hours, he realized there was only one thing left to do: jump out the window. He knew well that this would probably result in his death, but he convinced himself that death was better than being stuck in this office alone. He mentally prepared himself and then leaped out through the solid glass plane. David plunged to his death. As he fell, a smile lit up his face. David's story is just one of many. All 500 employees plunged to their death after a severe gas leak, or so that is the official story. Hundreds of bodies lay on the floor outside the car park. They all had one thing in common: they were all smiling. Honestly, can you blame them? They are free.